Selfie reader is Kuypers. She's a professional performance artist and publisher. Janet has edits 2 literary magazines while running Scars Publications, and the links are in the program. She has 90 plus books published, poems, prose, novels, art, has sung in 3 bands, has shows around the country, and her CD releases, over 40, appear on iTunes and other online vendors. Starting in 2010, Janet is still hosting the Gallery Cafe, Chicago Open Mic Poetry, and there's poetry, video, podcast. It's open mic plus the feature. It's a wonderful place to go every other Wednesday. I really recommend it. Let's give it on to Janet.
Thank you very much, but before you leave, I was going to say, I just knocked something over. I wanted to give you a couple copies of the chapbook of stuff that I have in my life. Knock somebody's stuff. I apologize. Some of the chapbooks of things that I have and will be performing tonight are in this little collection, and if she will probably she's so cute. I would give this copy to Elizabeth if she wanted to come back, and if people wanted to have copies of it, I have this. To let you know, back in '09, I met the Haman of South Africa, Francois LaRue, when he set up music for poetry of mine for a show that we were doing. A phenomenal musician that travels regularly, and actually just 2 days ago he was in Chicago, and he talked to me a lot about this most recent project I was working on, which was to write poetry, believe it or not, for every element in the periodic table. So he actually gave me music that is going to be going with this, and I am going to, I'm just going to, she's left me, but one copy is for you, my darling. You left, but I'm going to pass these around. Thank you, darling. Just let somebody have them. I only have 3, so.
Anybody want to follow along?
Anybody want to follow along? I know the Bobsters would. But thank you very much. And so he gave me music that I have set for these. And yes, I have tried to make them actually do talk about connections around the world, as well as humor with some interplanetary talk as well in there. So the music that you're going to be hearing is from Francois, and it's actually called Entering the Ruins. I'm just going to let this music run in the background between all of them. And I'll try to keep the titles of everything short in between them. But this first one, each one's going to have a number, is number 25. It's a periodic table, and it's manganese. And I hope that this will be appropriate. I wanted plants around. She always had plants around. Everything thrived with her. Ever since she died, my home has become a jungle. Let me have control over this. Let me add water nearly daily to the plant that I bought when I visited her, or the tree that she gave me years ago. Add plant food to the water because I don't want anything to die. Trim the dead leaves because they would remind me that even nature misses her. Keep plants near windows. They need their light. Their manganese needs it for their chlorophyll production. I should stock up on manganese plant supplements because their manganese assimilates the carbon dioxide in photosynthesis. So, breathe in our carbon dioxide and give me more of my precious oxygen so we can realize how we depend on each other so. I'll make sure nothing happens to you. I'll make sure you get everything you need. The periodic table, thank you guys, it is out there. This next one for my global talk is actually the second heaviest element in the periodic table, is 117. It is so rare that they don't even have a name for it yet, so they have the Latin name, 117. I knew you were out there for years, but to get to you after toiling in my Dugna lab, we had to ask the Americans over in Tennessee if they would send us some of their wares. But years passed before I could get 22 milligrams of berkelium, so I could work in Moscow Blast to get you in my sights. All that time, all I could do was research, hope. I'd work, I'd go, and I'd stand on my own, and I'd leave on my own, wondering how long it would take before I'd see what you might be like. You see, I used to work in a pharmacy at Nevsky Prospect in Leningrad, and that's when I fell in love with the idea of chemicals, and I loved the idea, and I wanted to learn and discover something new. That's when you came into the picture. Because after years of work, I still waited for those damn Americans to come through for us. I mean, we're scientists, we're supposed to be on the same side. This is all about discovery. And the thing is, the higher we got in our research, the more stable we got on our little island of knowledge. But this waiting was exasperating. I got to the point where I got tired of trying to tell myself that I had something to discover, something to share, somebody would want to hear. Eventually, they had to ship what I needed to get you in 5 packages wrapped in lead. It flew back and forth across the Atlantic 5 times and was rejected twice by customs. But once I got what I needed, oh, you were just about the heaviest thing I could imagine. Then again, you've had me spinning around over the years for you, so it wouldn't surprise me if you could do the same for me. So I'd work while listening to the radio, and active actions from you would come to me in short bursts. But I'll take whatever I could get in my little corner of the world. This is research, and this is what I do to learn what I can from you. This is one of my more recent elements that I've written, and this one's number 75 in the periodic table. Dun, dun, dun. This is rhenium. Okay, so I've been researching these elements in the periodic table, and when I got to rhenium, named for the Rhine River, by the way, I was kind of stumped. What comes to your head when you hear the word rhenium? Other than the fact that rhenium is an LP from Parliament released in 1970, I mean, I was stumped. But hey, this element was named after the Rhine River, stretching through Europe. But in ancient Greek times, they thought of the Rhine as the outermost border of civilization and reason, beyond which were mythical creatures. No lie. But I don't know if that mythical nature of the unknown is what drove scientists to search for this element, to learn everything they could about what was otherwise unknown to them. I mean, Mendeleev, the creator, as we know of the periodic table, he postulated this element's existence, but it wasn't found in his lifetime. And it was later predicted by an English physicist in 1913, but it still hadn't been discovered. But people in different countries kept claiming the discovery through X-ray analysis, but after a ton of dispute, the elusive element was finally found, and all scientists like to think, well, this discovery has to mean something. I mean, we have to use this discovery for something so that people will appreciate our precious work. Well, they found out that rhenium, now that airplanes are being used more and more for both vacationers and business travelers, that it could be used with super alloys to make jet engine parts. Well, I guess that's cool for the jet setters out there. But people figured out that after they figured out that putting lead in a high-performance fuel might not be good for the environment, or for people, they found that rhenium could be a catalyst for making lead-free high-octane gasoline. Since we now have the means to travel faster and farther, thanks to rhenium in parts, by the way, we might not think of the Rhine as the edge of our existence, with anything beyond it being so mysterious. But when it comes to rhenium, it's one of the rarest elements in Earth's crust. I wonder if that's why it took so long to discover it. Because of its radioactivity, it's used in the treatment of liver cancer and maybe pancreatic cancer too. But with the skyrocketing price of this rare element, scientists still worry about the potential toxicity of rhenium. So, maybe, like the mythical creatures beyond the Rhine the Greeks foretold, maybe, after discovering rhenium, maybe we should be looking at both the bad and the good that can come out of this rare, but radical and remarkable rhenium. This is my humor one for you. I won't tell you the number, but this is a poem called Dibernium. Spending another Saturday night alone, I watched an old episode of Star Trek. In this episode, Captain Kirk, McCoy, and Sulu were beamed down to a planet with no magnetic field. After the Enterprise disappeared from their sensors, Kirk hears Sulu say, "The basic substance of this planet is an alloy of dibernium osmium." And my brain stopped when I heard this elemental scrap. I racked my brain. Wait a minute. I know osmium is the densest metal in the periodic table, but dibernium? I know Star Trek mentions many elements and isotopes when they talk science. Hydrogen, its isotope deuterium, transparent aluminum, even dilithium, which scientists are trying to use now to boost speed for long-distance space travel. So I had to research this elusive dibernium. Now, the Memory Alpha at Star Trek Wiki confirms that an abandoned Kalantan outpost was built to plant an artificial planet composed of a dibernium osmium alloy. And according to the Starfleet Medical Reference Manual, the element dibernium had the symbol DB, atomic weight 319, and atomic number 122. Okay, this poem is paying far too much attention to the periodic table, but I know that 118 is as high as the table goes. But like the periodic table addict, I still had to look into science fiction and pique my curiosity. The Star Trek Freedom Wiki explained that dibernium is a metallic element with phaser-like qualities. Okay, fine. Maybe I'll worry about these undiscovered elements only once they're discovered, because without actual phasers to worry about in the present, I think I'll stick with the elements we do know right now. It's tricky when you're hearing periodic table stuff, you start hearing these things, what? Oh, wait, what is that? Must research is here. But I would like to share with you the last periodic table poem I ever wrote. It's the second to last piece here tonight, and this is 107 in the periodic table. This is Boreum. This isn't boring. You won't be bored with the details. Anyone interested in different kinds of attraction should listen close. Because boreum isn't boring if you find fusion fascinating. Think about it for a minute. What are the conditions that bring two bodies together so they join to create something new? Think back to the time of year when you had met people that you later dated. Was it in the summertime when the temperature was high and you were feeling all hot and bothered when you saw that special someone that you were instantly attracted to? Maybe you were taking a break from school or going to the beach to relax, make yourself look just perfect for that one chance encounter that would lead to so much more. I hate to tell you this, but that hot weather attraction is a lot like hot fusion. Chemically speaking, after atoms are split apart, fusion is the art of getting different parts to come together to create something new. The sun is a natural fusion reactor. Nuclear reactors perform fission to split atoms. Nuclear fusion, or hot fusion uses all of its energy to slam those electrical atoms into each other, because once they're separated at these high speeds, their parts can create new elements or isotopes. And this is how science discovers synthetic elements. But sometimes that attraction can come not when the temperature is sizzling hot, but when things seem bitter cold and warm bodies have a tendency to group together to conserve their heat. I suppose you can say I am bonded with someone now. And when we met on a train commuting from work, it was the middle of January in a cold Chicago winter. I was fully adorned in a winter coat, a hat, gloves, a headband for my ears, boots, a scarf covering my face. Who knows? Maybe that not so hot weather gave us more of a reason to bond, since it was only 3 months after we met that we were engaged to be married. And I hate to say this, but scientifically, there's a method of fusion for this as well. Cold fusion is technically the fusion of things merely at room temperature and not after nuclear super excitement. And as I said, I don't want to bore you with the details, but there are a lot of ways fusion like that can help in the discovery of new elements, like borium. Because back in '81, element 107 was discovered after bombarding this with 209 with the accelerated nuclei of chromium-254. They only produced 5 atoms of borium-262, but man, they were excited. They were so attracted to this one man, Niels Bohr, that they wanted to name their element Niels Bohrium for the Danish physicist. But wait, Russian scientists originally wanted to name element 105 Niels Bohrium. So the Germans here at 107 said, hey, we wanted to give props to Niels Bohr for his work in cold fusion, since that's what we used in the discovery of this element. So the Russians relented, but the element naming commission said, wait a minute, we have never named an element after the full name of anyone. So after they temporarily gave it the name Unmilseptium, UNS, Latin for 107, they later settled for just the last name and crowned this little gem, Bohrium. And yeah, there are tons of isotopes of borium from all that atom smashing and bonding, with half-lives of 1/4 millisecond to 90 minutes. But there aren't many atoms of this stuff, so its properties are only extrapolated from knowing its place in the periodic table. But knowing still that I'm going to start that sentence again. But still, knowing how fusing things together is the only way to make this new element, that makes you put a whole new spin on bonding, attachments, creating something new that almost puts a glimmer in your eye and makes you smile again. That was the last periodic table element I wrote, but I did happen to discover things about future elements that might be generated from scientists, and as I was doing this research, I came up with this last poem, and thank you all very much. This is called G-Block. While researching cold fusion to learn about the latest periodic table elements, I see a sentence to a link for approaches to element 120, UBN, Unbinyllium. And I think, oh no, this can't be. The periodic table only goes to element 119. So with dread, I followed the link and realized that scientists can't be happy with the elements they've discovered. Of course not. So even though there's no place in the periodic table for any of these new elements, wait a minute. If they're talking about element 120, there has to be talk about element 119. So I looked it up, and of course, UUE Unillium has a wiki web page too. So I look up their supposed location in the periodic table, and they're off to the left of the table in 2 separate additional rows. You know, to the left of this, because this is an actual regular table. 119 is in the period 8 in the S block, just like its neighbor, 120. Whatever that means. I mean, really, I don't know for sure how these elements are running. But I looked at it, wait, they said it's just to the left of hydrogen, which is also in that S block. So, in the periodic table, it contains 4 blocks, S, P, D, and F blocks, giving you details about the atoms therein. But then I see a link there for the extended periodic table. Of course, an extended periodic table. So I look, and because all of these are super heavy elements, the theoreticians, including people like Seaborg, who theorized about many of these now postulated elements, they dropped this new set of 12 121 and up elements into the G block. Yes, the G block. Ask any prisoner in the G block and they'll swear the prosecution made everything up to put them behind bars. And I wonder if all these elements, which are still undiscovered, how much of these G block elements are the chemists really actually making up? But as far as they can hypothesize, this G block in the periodic table contains 18 elements with the partially filled G orbitals in each period. I've read documents postulating the first G block elements at 121 that claim the hypothesized element 126 could be within an island of stability, which means it's resistant to fusion, but not to alpha decay. They've tried to create element 119, 120, 121, 124, 126, and 127, and some scientists once claimed that they actually discovered an isotope of 122 occurring naturally. But wait a minute, let me think about this. If the G block is made of 12 elements, that would mean that the actual G block was element 132. And still, I've seen that extended periodic table has superactinides and eco-superactinides listed all the way up to 184. Ransom Fredson. Mumble, grumble. Can elements even actually exist with that heavy weight? Isotopes are some synthetic elements last only milliseconds. And as far as I know, the only way these super heavy synthetic elements can be created is by smashing an atom with a ton of neutrons into an atom of a synthetic element. You know, like with a half-life of like milliseconds. Can scientists ever even be able to try to create these only predicted super heavy synthetic elements? Because it's really unknown how far that periodic table extends beyond the discovered element 118. But some predicted it ends at 128, some predicted it ends at 155. Some first guessed that the table couldn't go past 137, but then they later calculated the end was 173. Fredson. With all these guesses, I can't hear myself speeching, but I'm not quite sure any of these chemists are saying the right answers either. Whenever I'm going to guess if any of these elements can ever even be created. Okay, fine. I'm just a poet trying to learn a thing or two to refresh my memory on the periodic table and keep my science know-how up to par. Maybe I'll just have to wait until they actually discover a new element and be content when they discuss elements in astronomy and science shows where I can actually understand what they're saying and think, wait, I think I knew that. Because, okay, I'm only a poet, but I welcome every new discovery as it comes with open arms.